For thousands of years, humans across cultures and civilizations have turned to sacred texts and metaphysical writings to explore the big questions. What is the nature of reality? What is the soul? Is there a higher truth, and how can we connect with it? In today's video, we're diving into 10 of the most powerful metaphysical and spiritual texts of all time, books that don't just offer spiritual guidance, but challenge how we think about existence itself. These aren't just religious scriptures. They are poetic, mysterious, philosophical, and sometimes even a little bit strange. But each one has left a lasting mark on the spiritual imagination of humanity. From ancient India to Renaissance Europe, from Egyptian tombs to mystical Jewish traditions, these texts offer insights that are just as profound today as they were centuries or even millennia ago. Whether you're a spiritual seeker, a curious mind, or someone who simply loves exploring the deeper layers of reality, you're in for a fascinating journey. So let's get started with the first on our list, a set of ancient writings that dared to ask the most daring question of all. What is the self? Number 1. The Upanishads. Our journey begins in ancient India, with a collection of texts that are less like religious commandments and more like whispered conversations with the soul. The Upanishads, a group of mystical writings that form the philosophical core of Hinduism. Dating back to somewhere between 800 and 200 BCE, the Upanishads weren't written by just one person. They're the result of centuries of oral teachings passed down from sage to student, from seeker to seeker. The word Upanishad itself means to sit down near, as in a student sitting quietly at the feet of a master, not to be lectured, but to listen deeply. So, what makes these texts so powerful? The Upanishads are obsessed with one question: what is the true nature of the self? But they go even further. They ask, what is the ultimate reality that holds this universe together? And the answer they offer is stunning in its simplicity and depth. Atman is Brahman. The individual soul is the universal soul. You are not separate from the divine. You are it. In poetic language that's both abstract and deeply personal, the Upanishads explore ideas that modern quantum physicists and mystics alike still wrestle with. The illusion of separateness, the nature of consciousness, the interconnectedness of all things. These texts introduced concepts like Maya, illusion, karma, cause and effect, and moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. But they're not dogmatic. They don't demand belief. They invite introspection. They challenge you to go within, to discover not just who you are, but what you are beneath the noise of thought, identity, and time. If you've ever found yourself wondering if there's something deeper behind your experiences, if you've ever glimpsed that quiet awareness beneath your thoughts and emotions, the Upanishads might already be speaking to you. They're not easy reads. They're meant to be meditated on, wrestled with, and revisited. But in that struggle, they reveal something astonishing. The divine isn't out there in the stars. It's right here, in you. Number 2. The Bhagavad Gita. Often called the jewel of spiritual discourse, it is one of the most widely read and deeply loved texts in the world, and for good reason. While it comes from the grand Hindu epic, the Mahabharata, the Gita is something entirely its own, a spiritual masterclass hidden inside a battlefield. Picture this. Two armies stand ready to clash. War is inevitable, and right in the middle, a warrior named Arjuna collapses in despair. He sees his friends, his family, his teachers on both sides, and he can't bring himself to fight. His heart is torn. He's caught between duty and conscience, honor and emotion. That's when his charioteer, who just so happens to be Lord Krishna in disguise, begins to speak. But Krishna doesn't tell Arjuna what to do. He reveals the deeper truth beneath the chaos. And this is what makes the Bhagavad Gita timeless. The Gita isn't just about war. It's about the war within, the inner conflict we all face when we stand at the crossroads of action and identity, of purpose and fear. Arjuna's struggle is your struggle, my struggle. It's the moment you ask, what am I meant to do with this life? In just 700 verses, the Bhagavad Gita unpacks profound spiritual philosophy. From Karma Yoga, the path of selfless action, to Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, to Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. Krishna teaches that true freedom doesn't come from escaping life's responsibilities, but from doing your duty without attachment to the outcome. That idea alone is revolutionary. You can act with your whole heart and still let go of the result. The Gita also dives into the nature of the self, Atman, the eternal soul that is untouched by death, fear, or change. Like the Upanishads, it reminds us that our true identity isn't the body, the title, or even the mind. It's something indestructible and divine. What makes the Bhagavad Gita unique is that it doesn't demand withdrawal from the world. Instead, it teaches how to live in the world with clarity, strength, and spiritual purpose. So if you've ever felt paralyzed by decisions or torn between what you want to do and what you should do, the Gita offers something priceless. Not just answers, but wisdom you can live by. Number 3, the Tao Te Ching. Here we have a short poetic text that has quietly shaped the spiritual and philosophical heart of East Asia for over 2,500 years. Written by the legendary sage Laozi in the 6th century BCE, this slim volume is one of the most translated works in human history, and also one of the most mysterious. The Tao Te Ching begins with a riddle. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. In just 10 words, Laozi flips the entire idea of spiritual teaching on its head. He's telling us that truth, at its core, can't be fully captured by language. The Tao, often translated as the Way, isn't a god or a doctrine. It's the natural, ungraspable force behind all things. It's the rhythm of the universe, the flow of life, the stillness behind movement. What makes this text so compelling is that it doesn't offer commandments or rules. It offers paradox. Laozi teaches through opposites. Yielding is strength. The soft overcomes the hard. Do nothing, and nothing is left undone. It sounds strange at first, even contradictory, but once you sit with it, you realize he's pointing to something deeper. He's asking us to unlearn our need to control, dominate, or force things to happen. In a world obsessed with striving, the Tao invites us to surrender, not in weakness, but in trust. The Taoist sage doesn't chase success. They move like water, flexible, formless, unstoppable. They act without ego. They speak with few words. They live in harmony with the Tao instead of trying to bend the world to their will. This is what gives the Tao Te Ching its quiet power. It's not about escape or enlightenment. It's about being so deeply aligned with life that you stop resisting it. And that's a form of spiritual genius most of us overlook. Whether you're dealing with burnout, overthinking, or the pressure to constantly be more, this ancient text offers a radical alternative. Let go. Be still. Follow the way. And maybe, just maybe, when you stop trying to force life to make sense, it starts to flow in a way that does. Number 4, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Here, we have one of the oldest and most fascinating spiritual texts in the world. But here's the thing, it's not really a book in the modern sense, and it definitely wasn't meant to be read from cover to cover. Instead, it's a collection of spells, prayers, and ritual instructions designed to help the soul navigate the perilous journey through the afterlife, from death to judgment, and hopefully to eternal peace in the field of reeds, Egypt's version of paradise. Dating back to around 1550 BCE, the texts were often written on papyrus scrolls and placed inside tombs. They were custom-made for the deceased, like a spiritual survival guide. These writings weren't just mystical poetry, they were practical tools for a soul facing the unknown. So why does this ancient funerary manual still matter? Because it reveals something universal. Human beings have always been obsessed with what happens after we die. And the Egyptians, with their elaborate tombs, sacred rituals, and cosmic mythologies, took that obsession to a whole other level. The heart of the Book of the Dead is the weighing of the heart ceremony. In it, the soul stands before Osiris, god of the underworld, and their heart is placed on a scale opposite the feather of Mayat, the goddess of truth and justice. If your heart is light, meaning you lived with integrity, you pass on. If not, your soul is devoured. It's dramatic, it's mythic, but it's also deeply symbolic. This idea that we carry the weight of our actions, that the soul has to reckon with itself, is echoed across cultures and spiritual systems. The Book of the Dead reminds us that death isn't the end. It's a transformation, a test, a mirror. It also gives us a glimpse into a worldview where life and death aren't opposites. They're part of one seamless spiritual continuum, where the soul must learn to speak the right words, remember its name, declare its innocence, and align with cosmic truth to move forward. In that sense, this ancient text isn't just about the afterlife. It's about how to live, with integrity, with awareness, with reverence for the unseen world. Because if the Egyptians were right, we're all walking with our hearts in the balance. Number 5, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Also known as the Bardo Thodol, this text doesn't just talk about death, it guides you through it. Imagine a spiritual map that's read aloud to the dying and recently deceased, not to mourn them, but to help their consciousness navigate the space between this life and the next. Composed around the 8th century CE and attributed to the legendary Indian mystic Padmasambhava, the Bardo Thodol is a cornerstone of Tibetan Buddhism. Bardo means intermediate state, and this book is a manual for what happens in that mysterious in-between, after the body dies, but before the next rebirth begins. But here's the profound twist. It's not just a book about dying, it's a book about waking up. According to the Bardo Thodol, when we die, we don't simply vanish or ascend. Instead, our consciousness passes through a series of stages, or bardos, each offering a chance at liberation or entanglement. In these states, we're confronted with visions that reflect the true nature of our own mind. Deities of blinding light, terrifying demons, peaceful realms, chaotic ones. But none of it is real in the way we think. It's all a projection of our own awareness, distorted or clear. The message? Liberation is possible at every moment, even after death, if we recognize what we're seeing for what it is. And that's where the book's deeper wisdom comes through. It teaches that the mind is the architect of both heaven and hell. Fear, clinging, and ignorance can trap the soul in endless rebirths. But clarity, courage, and mindfulness can break the cycle. This is why the book is read to the dying, to remind them, even in their most vulnerable, disoriented state, that they are not powerless, that beneath all appearances is their true nature, luminous, pure, and awake. But you don't have to be dying to learn from it. The Bardo Thodol invites the living to begin practicing that awareness now, to become familiar with impermanence, to recognize that every moment of fear, anger, or confusion is a kind of bardo, and that every one of us has the capacity to awaken, not just after death, but right here, in the middle of this life. Because in a way, we're always in between what we were and what we're becoming. Number 6, the Corpus Hermeticum. Next up is a mysterious and powerful collection of spiritual writings attributed to the mythical sage Hermes Trismegistus. He's a figure who blends the wisdom of the Egyptian god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes, a symbol of divine intellect, hidden knowledge, and spiritual transformation. Written between the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE, the Corpus Hermeticum isn't a single book, but a series of dialogues, often between Hermes and his student, that explore the nature of the cosmos, the mind, the soul, and humanity's relationship to the divine. What makes these texts so striking is their fusion of science, mysticism, and philosophy. Long before quantum physics or psychology, the Hermetic writings spoke of a living, breathing universe, one in which everything is connected through what they called the All. And in this view, human beings aren't separate observers. We're microcosms of the macrocosm, reflections of the divine order itself. One of the central Hermetic principles is this: as above, so below, as within, so without. That simple line has echoed through centuries of spiritual traditions, magical practices, and esoteric teachings. And it's more than poetry, it's a roadmap. It means that by understanding the inner world, we begin to understand the outer one. That transformation isn't something that comes to us. It starts in us. The Corpus Hermeticum is deeply concerned with gnosis, not just believing in something, but knowing it through direct spiritual experience. In one dialogue, Hermes describes an overwhelming vision in which he sees the birth of the universe, the movement of the stars, the divine light within all things. It's not abstract, it's visceral, it's revelation. And perhaps most importantly, these writings insist that divinity isn't locked in a temple or hidden in the heavens. It's already inside you. The soul, according to Hermetic thought, has fallen into the illusion of separation. The purpose of life? To remember, to awaken, to return to what you truly are, an emanation of the divine intellect living in a temporary form. The Corpus Hermeticum was rediscovered during the Renaissance and became a cornerstone of Western mysticism, influencing alchemy, magic, astrology, and even early science. But at its heart, this text is not about performing rituals or collecting knowledge. It's about reclaiming your divine identity and learning how to live in tune with a universe that's always been more alive, intelligent, and sacred than we've been taught to believe. Number 7. The Zohar. Now, this isn't a book you just read. It's a book that reads you. It pulls you into a world of secret meanings, layered symbols, and the hidden architecture of creation itself. Composed in the late 13th century and traditionally attributed to the 2nd century Jewish sage Shimon bar Yochai, the Zohar actually emerged in medieval Spain, likely written by the Spanish Jewish mystic Moses de Leon. But wherever it came from, its message is timeless. Beneath the surface of the Torah and beneath the surface of reality itself lies a deeper, more luminous truth. The Zohar is written as a mystical commentary on the 5 books of Moses, the Torah. But it doesn't read like a conventional explanation. Instead, it's a kind of spiritual jazz, full of symbolic language, dreamlike imagery, and sudden detours into metaphysical insight. It weaves myth, scripture, and esoteric philosophy into a powerful attempt to understand the nature of God, the soul, and the universe. One of the Zohar's most radical ideas is that the divine is not a single being, but a dynamic structure made up of different sephirot, emanations or aspects of God. These include forces like wisdom, understanding, beauty, judgment, and compassion. Together, they form the tree of life, a blueprint not only for divinity, but for human transformation. In this view, every human action ripples through the spiritual worlds. To act justly, to speak with kindness, to pursue truth, these aren't just moral choices. They're cosmic acts. They bring balance and light into creation. And when we fall into ego, cruelty, or numbness, we disturb that harmony. What makes the Zohar so compelling and so challenging is its insistence that the world is not what it seems. It's a spiritual puzzle, a veiled dimension. Every word in the Torah is seen as a doorway, Every moment in your life is encoded with hidden energy. And the soul's purpose? To decode it all, to pierce the illusion and participate in the great unfolding of divine light. This is not just Jewish mysticism. It's a universal vision of a living, breathing cosmos in which you are both participant and observer, a soul on fire with potential. The Zohar doesn't give easy answers, but it dares to ask the ultimate question: what if everything is sacred and you've only just begun to see it? Number 8. The Enneads by Plotinus. If you've ever pondered where your soul really comes from, or whether everything is connected to a single source, then you've already stepped into the waters Plotinus was trying to chart. Written in the 3rd century CE and compiled by his student Porphyry, the Enneads are 6 groups of 9 treatises, not systematic textbooks, but living reflections on some of the deepest metaphysical questions. What is the nature of reality? What is the soul? What is the purpose of life? At the core of Plotinus's philosophy is the One, the ineffable source of all things. The One isn't a god in the traditional sense. It has no form, no name, no attributes. It simply is. Pure being, pure unity, beyond thought, beyond distinction. And from this One, all of reality flows, first into divine intelligence, nous, then into the world soul, and finally into the material world we live in. But here's the kicker. Your soul is not separate from this cosmic hierarchy. It descended from the higher realms, and its natural state is to return. So for Plotinus, spirituality isn't about belief or ritual. It's about inner ascent. Through contemplation, self-awareness, and philosophical discipline, the soul can strip away illusion and remember its origin. You don't become divine, you realize you already are. Plotinus famously described this return as a moment of ecstatic union, where the soul becomes one with the source, beyond intellect, beyond individuality. Not unlike the mystical experiences described by saints, sages, and seekers across cultures. What makes the Enneads so unique is their fusion of rigorous logic with spiritual longing. Plotinus wasn't just a philosopher, he was a mystic who spoke in paradoxes, poetic turns, and metaphors of light. And his influence can be felt far beyond the ancient world, from early Christian mysticism to Renaissance thought to modern metaphysical systems. Reading the Enneads is like listening to the soul think out loud. It reminds us that philosophy wasn't always a dry academic exercise. Once it was a path of transformation, a way of returning home to the divine source of all things. Number 9. 3 Books of Occult Philosophy by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. First published in 1533, this text is a bold and scholarly attempt to integrate ancient wisdom, natural science, and divine philosophy into a unified spiritual system. Agrippa was a German polymath, part philosopher, part magician, part theologian. And in this 3-volume work, he tried to answer a timeless question. What if the universe is a living symbol and everything in it is connected through unseen forces? The first book explores natural magic, the hidden powers within plants, stones, and animals. The second dives into celestial magic, including astrology, harmonics, and planetary influence. The third deals with divine or ceremonial magic, focusing on angelic beings, sacred names, and the soul's relationship to God. But Agrippa wasn't promoting witchcraft. He saw magic as the highest form of spiritual science, the study of how divine energy flows through the world and how a properly attuned soul could interact with it. He was building on Hermeticism, Kabbalah, Neoplatonism, and Christian mysticism, creating a framework where science, spirit, and symbol all converge. In a time when dogma reigned, 3 books of occult philosophy dared to suggest that God speaks not just through scripture, but through stars, numbers, patterns, and the natural world itself. Agrippa's work helped spark the Western esoteric tradition, influencing alchemists, Rosicrucians, magicians, and mystics for centuries. And for modern readers, it offers more than arcane formulas. It invites us to see the world as enchanted again, alive with meaning, layered with power, and open to spiritual insight. Number 10. The Pistis Sophia. This is a cryptic and beautiful Gnostic text that dives deep into the soul's fall from divine grace and its long journey back to the light. Likely written between the 3rd and 4th centuries CE and preserved in a Coptic manuscript discovered in the 18th century, Pistis Sophia presents an alternate vision of early Christian spirituality, one that emphasizes inner knowledge, cosmic struggle, and direct spiritual awakening. In Greek, pistis means faith and Sophia means wisdom. But Sophia here is more than a concept. She's a divine being, a feminine figure who falls from the higher realms into chaos because of her desire to know the unknowable light. The story becomes a powerful metaphor for the human condition. We too have fallen into confusion, ignorance, and material distraction. And like Sophia, we are trying to return, not just through belief, but through inner gnosis. This text features extended dialogues between Jesus and his disciples after the resurrection, including Mary Magdalene, who in Gnostic tradition is not just a follower, but a teacher, mystic, and embodiment of divine insight. They discuss multi-layered heavens, secret passwords, karmic consequences, and the soul's navigation through spiritual dimensions. The Pistis Sophia challenges mainstream theology by proposing that salvation comes not through dogma or blind obedience, but through awakening to your divine origin. It's a dense, symbolic, often overwhelming text, but that's part of its power. It reflects the spiritual path itself, not clean, not linear, but layered, mysterious, and ultimately transformative. For seekers who feel traditional religion doesn't go deep enough, Pistis Sophia offers a haunting message. You were divine before you were born, and your soul still remembers. And there you have it, 10 of the most profound spiritual and metaphysical texts ever written. Each one invites us to look deeper, think wider, and remember that we're more than just bodies moving through time. We're souls navigating meaning. Whether you're drawn to ancient scriptures or esoteric revelations, the journey inward is always the real destination. Which of these texts have you read or want to explore next? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep questioning. Remember, the universe is more alive than you think.